Alright, as I said in the follow-up videos to each day of the NRA Law Enforcement Firearms Instructor course for Tactical Shooting Instructor, I want to cover in this video just a pros and cons, lessons learned for each individual piece of gear to include the weapons I ran in the course of fires throughout that 5-day course, so that maybe you can take some lessons from what I learned putting it into practice. Is the first time I ran a pistol caliber carbine in a law enforcement instructor development school. And I'm going to talk about each piece of gear and equipment and lessons learned and that kind of thing. So without further ado, we're going to drop down and talk about the equipment. Alright, you should be able to see in your view there all the major components, the equipment that I was running, including firearms, holsters, slings, that kind of stuff in the course of fire. So I'll just I'll talk about each specific weapon systems first and the correlating gear and any pros and cons I had with it. And we'll just move through each of the 3 weapon systems and talk about it from that perspective. And I'll start right here in front of me. This is a cleared weapon, empty magazine, empty chamber. This is a Gen 3 Glock 17 that I've been running. You've probably seen it if you've been around my video for a while. I'm running a Type 2 RMR 06, that's the 3.25 MOA dot. I'm running XS big dot sights, suppressor height backup sights. You should be able to see those sort of, you're not going to be able to see a sight picture probably from this angle, but you can kind of see how that works in there. And it is a RTF frame running a grip force adapter to kind of correct if you will, the grip angle that I'm not really a big fan of with Glocks. It's running a Brownell slide. I haven't done anything to it. It came like this: slide cut, serrations forward and back, a top window. Alpha Wolf barrel from Lone Wolf, that's their match gray barrel, and the Stubby Comp from Texas Black Rifle Company. It's running a Johnny Glock's trigger kit in it and an extended magazine release from the Glock store. TRL1 HL weapon light. So I am running that in a Black Point Tactical leather wing. Most comfortable holster I've ever had outside the waistband. It's Kydex, obviously front and rear, a multicam, and then it's got these leather wings, hence the namesake, that really allows this to be super flexible and form to your body. Very, very comfortable. It's one of those that even with the full-size gun with all this stuff on it, it pretty much disappears on your waistband. I'm also running their leather wing accessory pack. I'm running 3 of them. Obviously 2 magazines, and then my Phoenix TK16 weapon light has an instant strobe, and then you can use the strobe button when it's on to click throughout the various light functions and brightnesses and all that kind of thing. So all this was absolutely flawless. I'm running Magpul mags with Zev mag base plates, and you can kind of see on the base plate there, they were dropped pretty hard many times and scuffed them up a little bit, which I don't care about the scuffs. Never had any failures. The only thing weird about these Magpul mags, if you put 1 round in it to set it up, sort of setting up feeds, and there's certain kind of drills where you'd start with 1 round, this will not cycle the HST hollow points with that flat face with only 1 round in the mag. You put 2 rounds in the mag and it'll chamber that round fine. If you just put 1 round in there, the front face of that hollow point just butts up against the feed ramp and it will not chamber. So take that for whatever it's worth. The only issue I had with any of this gear is when I was running a soft vest underneath my shirt. This is designed to be really form-fitting to your side. It's very low profile. With the vest, that increases the girth a little bit, and I had to be very intentional about wrapping my thumb around the grip to get a good one-hand grip when drawing the weapon. But the reason I started here is there's really not a lot to say about this. Everything worked exactly like it should, save what you know, the little extra effort with drawing with that really tight to your body holster, and it was not a problem at all when I wasn't running a vest. And I did some days with and without the vest just to test all this kind of stuff out. This may not be the best holster for you if you are one of those guys with a lot more tactical girth. You may need something that sits away from your body a little bit more. So we'll get this out of the way. Like I said, not a lot to talk about with that. The next weapon system I'll talk about is the Glock 43. This is also empty magazine, empty chamber, cleared weapon. And I'm running this in a Minuteman Defense holster that I bought to be appendix carry, and I'm running it on a Filster, and I can't remember exactly what this piece is called, but it's just this rubber piece, and I'm running the Snake Eater mini magazine pouches where I can have 3 mags here. I've got one that's a Vickers +2 magazine base, and then 2 of the Terran Tactical +2 magazine bases. No issues with any of those magazines, all on Glock mags, and then also running the low profile 6-round magazine. Running a, can't remember the make of the barrel, I think it's right here on the side, AT something, American Tactical or something. I'm running a stubby comp, or not really their stubby comp, but the Texas Black Rifle Company's single stack comp, and I just cut the front port off and refinished it so it would make it even smaller for appendix carry. This is an in-motion tactical slide. I bought this doo-doo brown frame from the Glock store and did the stippling myself. It's also running a Johnny Glock trigger. Absolutely no issues with any of this equipment whatsoever. Had to take some fine tuning to get the depth right where this sits. The only issue I was having with this Filster setup is there's really nothing of any substance on this far end, and so I made a little Kydex piece, and you can see how it's kind of angled, so that's not pressing, the bottom of this is not pressing on my body, it's sort of angled out, and I riveted on there so that, and it works way better with that in place. Not a lot to say about this. All the equipment worked really well. Had no issues with this sliding around once I got the depth set up just like I wanted it to be, and that worked really well for the off-duty concealed carry type stuff we did in the course of fire. So we'll get that out of the way. And now we get into the stuff where I did have some issues, all fixable issues. One thing I'll mention first are these 33 round mags that I was running in the CMMG Guard MKGS pistol that I'm running on brace here. We'll talk about that with the weapon specifically in a second, but a lot of people have issues with these aftermarket stick mags. This is an actual Glock mag, had no issues with it. Actually had no issues with any of these magazines. The issue that some people have is when they drop these non-Glock aftermarket stick mags, when this impacts the ground, the base plate will pop off. So what I did before I even went to the class is I ran a strip of Gorilla duct tape. Gorilla brand duct tape. It's just a little strip that is sort of holding the base plate to the magazine. And this is extremely tough tape. These little orange stickers are just so I could find, you know, my magazines. Not that anybody else was running a 33 round stick mag. But had no issues with anything falling apart running it this way. And after a very, very hard on these magazines 5-day course, the tape's not even beginning to peel off any of them. So pretty good option if you're worried about base plates popping off. You can swap that tape out, you know, probably every year and be pretty good to go. You can see how much wear those base plates got. I mean, the color's coming off and they're all banged up, but tape stayed in place, base plate stayed in place. No issue with the Glock mag. I've got 2 of these textured 33 round magazines. I'm not even sure who makes these. These ran really well. And then I got 3 that are the Korean made KCI. They may have made the texture ones too. No issues with those magazines at all. Now, I'll go ahead and knock the weapon out of the way. This is a CMMG Guard MKGS. It came as just their pistol buffer tube. I'm running a Strike Industries enhanced castle nut thing here, or buffer nut, Law's tactical side folding stock adapter, some Strike Industry pins. I'm running the James Madison tactical saber trigger in there, Strike Industries curved angled foregrip, Enforce Gen 1 weapon light. It's the low lumens weapon light. I'm running the Bobro tactical low profile backup sights. Those went really well in the class. No issues with those. Didn't use them a whole lot, but went really well with those. I got my American Defense lower 1/3 co-witness quick detach mount on my Trijicon MRO, and that's about all the particulars there. Then obviously the Gearhead Works tailhook mod 2 5-position collapsible brace. Okay, so this is how I was running my rifle mags. I was actually running the duty holster and stuff that you saw for the Glock 17, and then I was running this just before and after my holster on my left side, and this hung down as a leg rig, and I was running 4 stick mags in this holster. Now I kind of want to show you one issue I did discover. I'm going to throw some snap caps in this first magazine. And so I was running the 4 mags like this, and these, as you'll see, these Taco magazine pouches are made for standard height magazines, and I wasn't sure if they would stay in place. So what I did is I tightened them down really tight in the back so that they would stay in place. But here's the issue I was having. Imagine this running on my leg, and I would go to rock this up. I don't know if you heard that, but in rocking that up, because these were so tight, the little phalanges on the side would grab the back of the round and either strip it all the way out like it did right there, or sometimes they would come out of the magazine pouch looking like this. And so then I would introduce this magazine under stress and time, you know, and I'm not looking at it, into the magazine well like that. This would pop off into the open space between the magazine and the chamber, and when I sent the bolt forward, it would strip off this next round trying to go in the chamber, and there's an extra round floating around there, and I was having double feeds and some issues with that. If you watched my videos after the class, you heard that one of the issues I was having is just inside the chamber here. There's no way I'm going to get it on camera from this angle, but if you were to look down in the chamber, forward of where the charging handle would normally sit into place up here, there's normally a gas tube coming from a gas block into the upper receiver here to make an interface with the gas key on the bolt carrier, but since it's a radial delay blowback, it doesn't have a gas tube. So there's an area just inside of this where one of those loose rounds could go in there and actually get jammed up in the hole in the receiver where the gas tube would only come through, and that was a pretty difficult double feed to get out of there because it would get jammed so tight, especially with a snap cap. I had to hammer it out with a mallet and tool. So I don't think I would have that issue if this wasn't halfway stripping the magazine out as that came into, but something to consider running a pistol caliber carbine like this, because there's a vacant space there for brass or a live round or anything else to get jammed up in there. Another issue I was having was with this Law side folding stock adapter. I'll pull this pin out of the back. If you look down in there, you'll see where just inside there's a ring with 4 notches in it, and that's what you tighten down to hold this to the base of the lower receiver. That backed out on me a little bit, and I installed it just like Law Tactical said you're supposed to. There's this little teeth phalange that goes there, and you turn it till it bends, and it's supposed to be torqued on properly. Well, I did that, and it still backed out on me on the third or fourth day. So I think it was the third day. So I just spread some needle nose pliers, caught them in those notches, and torqued it down. I didn't have any other issues with it, but I will be applying some blue Loctite there. Another issue I had with the Law side folding stock adapter is, and what happened with that is that this would make this base plate loose, and I was getting a lot of wiggle and play that I shouldn't be getting. And as this pivots at this point, just by a millimeter or two, it's putting pressure on the bolt carrier as it goes back into battery after recycling from a round being fired. So I would fear the bolt come back and kind of drag and then go into place. And it was because this angle that it was allowing it to bend, because it had gotten loose, was putting pressure on there. Another issue I had with the Law side folding stock adapter is underneath the bottom here, you'll see there's a little set screw, and that's directly under the pin that holds the buffer and spring in there. And this backed out on me, and so I lost the spring and the detent, and when I opened this up, the buffer and spring come flying out of this thing. So luckily I was able to find all the parts, put that back in place, and I'll be applying some blue Loctite to that too. So those are 2 easy to prevent issues, that a little bit of Loctite in areas that is not specifically spelled out to put Loctite should fix that. I don't know if you can tell in my hand right here, it's starting to heal up, but there's a gouge in my hand there, and what that's from is this part of the Law side folding stock adapter. You see that little notch that comes out right there? It's to prevent you from accidentally depressing that with equipment or something. This little sharp edge here, doing weapon malfunctions, coming off the weapon and pulling away, it digs right into your hand. So I'm going to Dremel that down smooth, take that tip off of it, and then put some Aluma Black on there to refinish it a little bit. That's something that maybe Law Tactical we should look at in future production lines, to milling that down where there's not such a sharp edge on there. I get why you don't want it open, because it would be possible for something to press that in and then you're out of battery, but they should take that sharp edge off. I'm not a big fan of sharp edges on guns, so that's not something that is as easy to fix as Loctite, but certainly if you have any Dremel skills, you can knock that down and not have any issues. I was running the Magpul Sling. This is an MS4 with the QDs. I was running it both as a single point like this, and then running it as a 2-point sling as well for some drills. But I'm a fan, when I'm doing a lot of weapons transitions and close quarters kind of thing, I'm a fan of the single point sling. You do have to think about it when you're moving rapidly because it can bounce around all over the place, but that's sort of a training issue. You can adapt how you run and where you put your arms and stuff to kind of keep that from bouncing around all over the place. I'm a big fan of the Magpul slings. People get real high speed and buy a bunch of fancy stuff, but I've had no issues running the Magpul slings. It's really easy to adjust for length if you're going back and forth from 2-point to single point. And the good thing about the running that single point sling is when you're in a right-handed position and all of a sudden you find yourself where you need to go left-handed, I can, from the same sling attachment point, rock this from my right shoulder to my left shoulder, and then I'm right into a good left-hand position. Normally when I run a carbine left-handed that doesn't have an ambi selector, I just keep my thumb outside the grip over here, pull a little tighter, and no issues. And that way I can manipulate the safety from that position on the left-hand position. I did run a Wilderness Systems ankle IFAK with a cat tourniquet in it, some duct tape, pressure bandages, and band-aids, that kind of stuff, and plenty of other things you could fit in there, but this was on my ankle as it normally is during the class, and I pretty much keep this on me all the time if I'm not wearing shorts. So that's a very quick down and dirty, just in general, of what worked and what maybe could have worked better. If I could do it all over again, I certainly would have milled off that little angled area on the Law side folding stock adapter and applied some Loctite to that set screw that's underneath the detent for the buffer and spring, and some Loctite on the nut on the inside of this forward face of the Law side folding stock adapter. It does have a set screw on the side of this, both of them backed out, not only the set screw but the nut on the inside, so they probably both need a little bit of Loctite. So those were the kind of the failures. I'll address this issue I had by running either a taller taco pouch, which they make now, but there's also other kinds of magazine pouches that work great for these stick mags. Even things that are pistol height pouches can run really well as long as there's a certain way to attribute some sort of retention to them that isn't going to pull in the sides like this taco does. So if I ran it loose enough that it wouldn't strip a mag, it would fall out if I was running. So I had to just keep them tight and try my best to pull completely straight up so that it didn't strip any magazine, which added another thing to focus on. So the only true failure, I guess, of the class would be running these specific taco pouches for a 33 round magazine. Was able to avoid some issues, like I said earlier, running the Gorilla Tape on the base plate and the base of the magazine. Didn't have any issues, and I was slamming. Our range was on concrete, so we were on concrete the entire time with carbines. And so when these were falling, loaded and unloading, they were falling on asphalt. No issues with anything popping off running that Gorilla Tape over there. So the lubricant I was running for the entire class, and I did not clean my weapon. I did wipe down my bolt carrier one time, and on the inside with a finger and a rag, just kind of wipe some of the extra carbon out of the chamber there, or the hollow of the upper receiver. I never really cleaned anything, none of the weapons that I fully break down and clean, and I was running Lucas Extreme Weapon Oil or something to that effect. And it is the best weapon oil out there in my opinion. It runs flawlessly. It stays around. It's got the perfect viscosity to stick around in all kinds of weather. Not get too thick and sludgy, but also not get so thin that it drips out. So that was a big win for the Lucas Extreme Weapon Oil, or whatever it's called. It's close enough that if you Googled that, you could find it. Big win on the Filster platform and the Snake Eater mags for my appendix carry rig, along with the Minuteman Defense holster. One thing I will say, to get the depth just right where everything stayed in place, what I did is I ran this soft loop one notch lower than this one, and this is kind of even with the soft loop over here, so all these stayed this. It wasn't rocking up out of my waistline. I was able to keep the depth the same from these two, and then to get a little bit of a cant where it didn't print, I angled this down so it kind of sort of sits in the belt, canted a little bit. And there's a good balance between the depth of these two soft loops and then the cant pulling this out a little bit so that I can get my grip all the way in there and get a good grip and a balance between that and then concealing the grip under a concealment garment like a shirt or whatever. So there you have it. By the way, the platform that I'm running these on, this is just a Black Hawk. It's a C1355. That's the model number of this leg rig. It's just a Molly platform. So obviously the taco pouches will go to that. So I'll have to kind of investigate what I might want to run on that in the future to replace those taco pouches. It was a good call going with this Strike Industries enhanced buffer tube nut, if you will, castle nut there, because it pulls the QD. The Law does have a QD attachment point here, but if you think about running it off of that, it is right there on top of your grip, and that would have been very uncomfortable by the end of the class to have this part digging into the top of my hand. So by running this, which is the only reason I bought this, this moves this completely out of the way. It's not making contact with my hand at all. And so I could run the sling comfortably and reliably. Never had an issue with the sling pulling out of this. And when I ran the sling as a 2-point, I ran it in the built-in quick attachment point in the side of the handguard from CMMG. No issues there. So all in all, I feel like I did my research well, set the gear up as it needed to be to run the class reliably. If it wasn't for the few issues I had with that Law side folding stock adapter, I really wouldn't have had any issues to speak of, except for the round that would kind of get a little funky inside of the chamber and go into that open port for the gas tube. Once again, that's really being caused by this magazine coming out of a taco pouch and getting inserted into the weapon with a round half stripped out of it. So fixing the magazine pouches, Loctiting some stuff on the Law side folding stock adapter, I think probably wouldn't have had any malfunctions actually with both of those things being done. I do think it's worth the manufacturers of these pistol caliber carbines who are using their standard up receiver on these builds to consider not milling out that hole or putting some sort of plug, producing some sort of plug that can be put in there, but it'd have to be something that would stay in place and not fall out and cause its own malfunctions. But those are the takeaways from a gear and equipment standpoint. I really loved the leg rig, just didn't love the pouches on it. That worked very well. It's kind of intuitive. I'm already reaching over here for magazine. For my handgun, I can reach just a little bit lower, and there's a stick mag right there. And obviously because I'm running a Glock 17 and a Glock compatible pistol caliber carbine, any of these magazines could go in any weapon. And there were times that during a drill I was running stick mags in a pistol because that's what I had available, or I was running pistol mags into the carbine because that's what I had available, which is good because the whole purpose for running this specific model of gun is reciprocity between the two magazines, cross compatibility. So the only thing that would have worked a little bit better for cross compatibility if I was running a 26 or a 19 versus the 43, but that's worth not having redundancy to get a little bit smaller package, more comfortable, and actually going to use it more often than I would a 26 or a 19. And with 3 extra magazines and a 4th one in the gun, it was plenty enough ammo to get me through the drills. In fact, I found myself reloading far less frequently than everybody else because I'm running 22 rounds in my handgun here and 33 in the carbine, and then obviously 6 here and then 8. So I had plenty of ammo on deck anytime I needed it, and then obviously some cross compatibility in the backups over here for these 2 weapons. So if you have any specific questions about any of this stuff, like, comment, subscribe obviously first, but then please ask me a question, send me a message, whatever, and I'll speak to anything that I may not have covered or failed to cover here. And you'll see all this equipment moving forward into the Warrior Works project, because this is the stuff that I use every day, and so it will be around the channel very frequently. And as soon as I can address how I'm going to replace these, I'll do a follow-up video and show you what I've done. I've got an idea. One of the guys in class is on the Marine Corps shooting team, and he had some magazine pouches he was going to shoot me to try out that he had some extras of. So I think I have this planned out, but I'll show it to you whenever I get it done in a follow-up video to this. The next video that's going to come out about this class is going to just be a total after-action report, and I'll discuss all the drills we did, what we covered each day, and kind of just give an overview of the law enforcement division from NRA, the Tactical Shooting Instructor School itself, and what all was covered. And and then we'll just move forward as we move forward. So once again, you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Anything specific you want me to cover in detail, all you got to do is ask and I will do my best. So see ya.